A woman who writes things and then creates dialogue around whatever she writes. I have a thing for women who risk expression. There's something in me, whatever it is that I'm made of, that is innately drawn to the energy of a woman who's willing to explore and express whatever it is that she is. For me, that space started when I first became pregnant. My first daughter represented a big transition in my life from a woman who was presenting to a woman who started being present. At the time I was in the legal field, I was working as a file clerk at a large law firm, getting ready to go to law school, and just engulfed in this idea of becoming something so that I could be happy. And when I got pregnant with Marley, I felt her, I think. I felt something inside me question whether what I was doing was in alignment with who I was. And I was in the file room one day at the firm, and I heard something ask me, can I be myself for a living? Can I be myself for a living? And I don't know whether I'd even thought about that question before, but I knew that I wasn't going down that path. And I decided that it was my baby. It was my baby asking me that question, and that if that baby became a girl or a boy who asked me that question, would my life be an honest reflection of whatever I would answer? In other words, could I say, yes, daughter or son, you can be yourself in all that you do? So I became a woman who was on a journey to figure out whether I was allowed to be myself in all that I did, whether my vocation, my marriage, my friendships, my travels, like if I really took on the idea of being myself, not just as this reaction to something, but as my way of being, like what would that look like? And that became my exploration into myself and into the environments in which I wanted to live. And I just do it out loud. So radicalselfie.com is about that exploration. Both of those people are the same. There's a quote in my book that came out of a conversation that I was having with Chris, my husband. I am who I am only when I am how I am. Anything else is acquiescence. And I do my best to stay aligned with that feeling, the feeling that comes when I say that quote and when I consider that quote, because I don't ever want to have to be a version of myself in an environment, and I don't want other women to feel like they need to be a certain way in order to be accepted, in order to be validated, in order to be loved. I think that women are at the core of a community and of our society, and that when a woman is hurt, the saying, hurt people hurt people. When a woman is hurt, it doesn't just affect her, which is already important enough, but it also affects the people that she raises, whether they're her own biological children or she influences them as a part of a community. It affects the relationships that she's in, romantic, platonic, professional, all of them. And I believe that it is really important that each woman learns how to be herself, learns how to speak up for what she needs, learns how to manage to be compassionate without compromising herself. A woman needs to learn how not to make self-care and self-love a reactive space. It needs to be something that she considers daily, and she needs to remove the idea that selfishness is a negative thing, because it isn't. Because we heal, we're at the core, and it's important for us to consider our needs. So I'm going to read you a direct quote from the About page of my blog, because it sums up what radical self-expression means. I recognize that many women are radical thinkers buried in everyday tasks and demanding relationships with her partners, her children if she has them, and her work. She has lost touch with her unfiltered self, and with that loss came acquiescence. She settled, she compromised, but she did well in her career maybe, made a name for herself in a positive way to be respected, but now the parts of herself she stifled over the years are rising up. Her creativity and her intuition are no longer accepting her deferment letters or her forbearance applications. She's ready to live in deeper alignment with her desires and to explore and express her authentic self, like she was never doing before. She is both returning to and becoming herself. And then my job is to create the environments for her to swim all up in those exploration and expression spaces. I am Akilah S. Richards, also known as Execumama, and I help women to risk expression. I hope that explains it. It's really unnerving to me that we settle in so many ways, myself included. And so I started this personal work to find all the stuck spaces, to find all the places where I was a muted version of myself, and to blow that out, whatever that meant, so that I could face myself, whatever that meant. And after I was doing that so much and feeling the benefits of that, I wanted to give it. I wanted it to become not just what I did, but also what I gave, what I sell, what I represent, all of that. Radical Self-Expression Manifesto explores womanhood, specifically in the spaces of 3 facets of ourselves. Our inner little girl, so who we were at around 7 or 8. Our old woman self, who will be around 70 or 80. And sacred in between, who we are right now. I created spaces for each of those versions of myself to speak up. And then I shared that with other women, sometimes in reality and other times in stories. And I put all of that together in the form of a manifesto. So it's fictional, but it's spiritual fiction. It's based on the experiences that I've had and the experiences of some of the women who've allowed me into their lives through coaching, anonymously, of course, and some of the stories that I read and some of the stories that I connect with as I listen and, as I'm just being about the world and taking things in as a creative person. You identify yourself as an artist of some sort, whether that's through writing, whether that's through music, whether that's through painting, whether that's through crafts, whatever it is that you do, you see the art in it and you seek and you are creativity. I consider myself to be a member of that tribe, and with that comes a need to deeply explore ourselves and to live in spaces where we are not settling for lesser versions of ourselves. And I really just write for that woman. I write for that woman because I am that woman. I call her the soft, sharp woman because she has elements of both. I think women like us tend to be viewed as difficult sometimes, talented as well. We tend to, you either really dig us or you really don't, right? So if you've been told that you fall in that spectrum or you feel like you fall in that spectrum, I write for that woman. And I write for the woman who is either okay or learning to be okay with being the soft, sharp woman. I wouldn't say anything if I had one last moment with inner little girl. I would use that last moment to listen. And for me, that's what the inner little girl represents. She represents stillness. She represents a deep, old knowing that I don't have to vocalize. I don't have to put it to words. I just know it. I think each of us innately know what it feels like when we are going in alignment with our true selves and when we're going a direction that isn't in alignment with who we are, right? And inner little girl for me represents that voice, that intuitive, old, ancient knowing of Akilah. And I do this work in part because I want other women to reconnect with their inner little girls as well. Not to teach them anything, but to learn from them. Don't try so hard. That's one of the primary things that she continues to remind me. There's this saying that it says, just breathe, the universe will handle the rest. May not be quite that simple, but there is definitely heavy validity and deep empowerment in the knowing that the more I explore my authentic self, the less I have to fit in, the less I have to figure out, and the more I get to just flow. I'd love your support for the Radical Self-Expression Summit that's happening here in Atlanta, Saturday, June 14th. So it's poetry, protest, and prose. It's also going to be the launch party for Radical Self-Expression Manifesto, but I didn't want to just sit and sign books. I wanted to bring the manifesto to life. I wanted to showcase some of the women who remind me how to risk expression. I wanted to have art in the room. I wanted to hire DJs who I've been following their work for years, and they're just like the dopest embodiment of radical self-expression through music. Shout out to Highlander, highlander.net. And it's just that space for creative expression. You might see somebody showing up in a costume. You know, we're going to have body painting. There's just going to be a lot of unfiltered, beautiful expression around what it means to be boldly yourself. I appreciate you so much, Isis, for what you and the team are doing here. Keep it up. It's lovely, it's necessary, and it is definitely an example of radical self-expression. Thank you for having me. Peace.